Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report. We are live here on Wednesday. A special show with special hosts, Damian Nelson, he is I is he, and David Hero. David, how are you on this fine Wednesday?
That is me. It's a little bit different being back on Blog Talk. It's been almost a year, hasn't it?
We have not done a show since right around WrestleMania 29 last year. I can't remember if it was before or after. It's been good to be gone, but it's also great to be back. And we're back because we're coming off the heels of a pretty active week in professional wrestling last week. Last week, CM Punk walked out of WWE, and Batista won the Royal Rumble. Last Saturday night on Primetime, a special 1-hour extended edition of Primetime, we discussed both those things in great detail. And a lot of people out there didn't necessarily agree with our comments. And our comments, which, as we talked about on the Double D podcast on Monday, were, well, the truth, if you will, at least as we see it, and with the information that we have at the time. So let's reset, if you will, and give the fans a backstory as to where we're at. But before we do that, we're doing this because we want to hear from all of you, especially those of you who have different opinions than what we may have on these situations. And the number that you can call us at is 347-996-5278. Again, we're live here on Wednesday night, 347-996-5278. We got a couple of people on hold already right now, and we'll get to those calls in just a minute. 347-996-5278. We'll head to the phone lines in just a moment. But as I said, last Monday, WWE Raw was taken aback by the fact that one of its top stars, CM Punk, decided to walk out of the company. He left. He packed his bags and he went home for whatever the reason, whether he's unhappy with the current direction of the company, whether he was injured or is injured as a result of his matchup at the Royal Rumble, or several nagging injuries, or just a general lack of satisfaction with the creative use of himself in WWE. The fact is, he did walk out, he did go home, and he is absent from WWE now. Now, we're one Raw removed now from that week happening, or from that walkout happening last week. And this past Monday night on Raw, we saw the fans in Omaha, Nebraska make their wishes known with several CM Punk chants throughout the evening, and they wanted Punk. Now, what I think this tells us is two things. Firstly, as I just said, they wanted Punk. Secondly, that gives you a little bit more information as to the power of the internet and the power of shows like this, because there are people in the wrestling business who believe that the internet wrestling fan or the internet wrestling community, the IWC, is a very small portion of the audience. Now, if they were that very small portion of the audience, then we wouldn't have heard such prevalent chants this past Monday night in support of CM Punk.
I don't know about that, Damian. I don't know about that, because all it takes is one person to start. We want CM Punk, and maybe that's what everyone else is just going to follow along and do. I mean, we don't know who really knows what's going on or what in the audience, but I mean, how many times have we been there where, you've tried a bunch of times to get a Nelson Rocks chant going, and a few people have picked up on it, but it doesn't mean it's because that they, follow everything online, but I have to disagree with you on that.
But if it hadn't happened in the first few moments of the show, I would agree with you. But it happened to kick off the show, not.
Right, but all it takes is 3 or 4 guys that go there together.
No,
to get
come
the chant
on. You're diminishing it. You're trying to. So every chant that started takes 3 or 4 people amongst 20,000 to start a chant.
Usually, yeah, it takes one person to start, and everyone else follows along.
But it doesn't catch on. It doesn't always catch on. And the ones in the middle of the show, I'll give you that.
Because some of them are pretty stupid. But it's CM Punk, and CM Punk has a pretty strong fan base. And, I doubt that the 9-year-old kid sitting in the third row was on PWRshow.com and read about Punk leaving. He could have been, but, he probably just went along because, hey, it's CM Punk. You like CM Punk. It sounds like a cool thing to do.
But why chant it when Randy Orton is standing in the middle of the ring? At the beginning of
Raw. Because maybe... like I said, 3 or 4 people probably started the chant, and then it just picked up. But it wasn't that loud. It wasn't that prevalent.
Here's why it wasn't
Didn't
that
really
loud and
stick
wasn't
out.
that prevalent. It was, but WWE, because they ultimately control everything, didn't let it be heard. Meaning Randy Orton didn't stop. He didn't even talk louder or softer. He just kept going. Several times throughout the night, either the commentators or the action in the ring or the star in the ring who was talking took over the show that the fans were attempting to take over. Again, the machine, they've got this market cornered, if you will. They've dealt with this before. But again, I'm still surprised. Fine, if it was 3 people, whatever. I'm still surprised to see so much immediate support for CM Punk. Now, I do know that in addition to wrestling sites, this was picked up by several other sports sites as well. So maybe that explains the difference in this case and how more people knew. But they also knew that CM Punk wasn't advertised for the show, at least between last week and this week. So their expectations may have been tempered just a little bit.
It's going to be interesting in a few weeks when Raw emanates from Chicago.
That in just a couple of weeks, just about 1 month's time, actually, March 3rd, from the Allstate Arena, Chicago, Illinois. That CM Punk chant might start at the beginning of Raw, and it may not end until the end of Raw.
No, that chant might start when they start taping Superstars or Main Event, whatever it is, and well after the dark match.
And to that point, that chant happened at NXT, which is, of course, a very small audience, comparatively speaking, and a very much more knowledgeable audience. And it did happen during Superstars taping this past Monday night. It happened during the Main Event taping at SmackDown. It happened to a degree at SmackDown. So maybe it is catching legs of its own, but it is already out there, and the fans are already jumping on board. But to the point you made about when Raw comes to Chicago on March 3rd, they won't be able to get away from that. And this could all be resolved by then, by the way.
I hope not. I hope it's not. Because that means somebody has to give in on their principles.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
But
if the WWE brings back CM Punk, then they're admitting that CM Punk is bigger than the entire company. And that sends the wrong message to the locker room.
Yeah.
I don't see CM Punk, swallowing his pride and coming back without those concessions.
The other point we were talking about, David Hero, which got some people a little hot about it, if you will, was Daniel Bryan and whether or not he is one of the top stars in WWE, or as I said on Primetime Saturday night, the most over star in WWE. You disagreed with that. I'll make my point again as to why I think he is. No superstar, no wrestler in WWE is getting the vocal support that Daniel Bryan is in the company right now. Whether it's cheers or boos, maybe Vicky Guerrero comes close with the boos, but nobody else is getting the reaction that Daniel Bryan is getting. Now, your counterpoint is valid, but one that most fans cannot comprehend, so I'll let you make that point again as to why you feel Daniel Bryan is not the most over star in WWE.
Because all those cheers can't buy me a gallon of milk at the grocery store. That's why. It's one thing to cheer and boo. It's another thing to show your support by buying the merchandise. And I know everyone says that, merchandise doesn't mean anything. Ask Stone Cold Steve Austin how much merchandise meant to him on his 5-year run when he was making over $20 million a year. It meant a lot.
JBL said this past Monday night on Raw in reference to, I don't recall what, but something else, said, and I quote, "You can't put potential on a billboard."
No, and that was a shot at TNA, I'm thinking. I don't know, but, the thing is, Daniel Bryan is, without a shadow of a doubt, perhaps the most popular guy in all of wrestling, and maybe, the last 5 years.
Well, what's the difference
maybe
then
longer
between
than
being
that.
the most over guy in the company and the most popular guy in the company?
Well, I'm saying the cheers make him the most popular.
Yeah.
Okay? When you say somebody's over, it means that you want to be that person. You want to be like that person. And I don't see enough people buying enough Daniel Bryan T-shirts and merchandise that want to be like Daniel Bryan. So I guess, it all comes down to a definition. He's popular. The fans love him. People love chanting yes. When his music hits, the place goes banana. But, at the end of the day, he needs to sell merchandise.
So you're saying we could agree right now that Daniel Bryan is fine. I'll change my language. Is the most popular star in WWE.
Sure, I can agree with that.
David Hero,
Absolutely.
you just said, I want to hear those words come out of your mouth. Daniel Bryan is the most popular star in WWE.
Daniel Bryan is the most popular star in WWE, but he's not the most over.
Now you're foxing this.
No, I'm not. I'm being honest.
I think
the
you
most
just changed
over
the
guy is
definition of
John
over.
Cena. He sells the most merchandise. I just told you, when somebody is over, it's because people want to be like him. They want to be that individual.
You wouldn't want to be Daniel Bryan?
No. Of course. Imagine how much money I have to spend in shampoo for my beard and hair. Forget that.
As we said,
and I'm not selling any T-shirts, so now I'm losing money. So forget it.
I'll make the point again that I made reference to the Royal Rumble, because we were live in Pittsburgh at the Royal Rumble. I was shocked and awed over the number of Daniel Bryan gimmicks that I saw people wearing in that arena in Pittsburgh. I challenge you to do this. When you go to the Elimination Chamber in Minneapolis, when you go to SmackDown in Milwaukee in a couple of weeks, take a closer look, because I think your analysis of his merch sales, if not on a comparison basis, just on a simple observational basis, is a bit dated.
And he can thank me, because I'm the one truly getting the yes movement going by telling his fans to buy his merchandise to make sure he stays at the top of the card.
All right, well, this is about our viewers and our listeners and all of you who, and we put it out there, by the way, David Hero, especially on our comments on our YouTube page. We went in and said, hey, fine, you don't agree? Give us a call. Join us live. Be a part of the show. Speak to us directly. And make
Can we have some ground rules, though? I mean, can we have people be civil and not yell and scream and be obnoxious?
I do ask, David, that you do be civil and that you do not yell and scream, and please don't be obnoxious, okay?
Well, I can't guarantee I won't be obnoxious.
347-996-5278. We've also got our Twitter page at PWR Show on Twitter, where you can join the conversation. And before we take our first phone call, I want to throw thanks out to the man they call Meathead, who is backstage, if you will, tonight, running the phones and running the show. So thank you for that, Meathead. And Matthew Thomas, those two will be back here in their regular Wednesday night spot next week here on Blog Talk Radio. So, without further ado, let's go to our first caller, who comes to us from Harmon, Tennessee. Mark, you are live here on PWR Live.
Okay, hold a second. I'm kind of hard of hearing. Let me put it back on the phone speaker.
While you do that, again, we're taking your phone calls, ladies and gentlemen, 347-996-5278. We're live here on Wednesday, February 5th on Blog Talk Radio. Damian Nelson and David Hero. This is PWR Live. We're taking your calls, your feedback, your comments on our comments from primetime last Saturday. And also, even if you don't have that, your comments on the CM Punk situation and the Daniel Bryan situation in WWE. Let's see if we can try Mark again and see if he's got his phone issues resolved. Mark, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Mark.
Yeah, I'm from here in Tennessee, and the only thing that really I was thinking about, y'all are just saying how people are selling merch and whatnot, and I'm thinking, if John Cena is the merch man, so he's the guy, right? Well, if he's this great ambassador they want him to be, he's still going to sell that merch. If he's competing for every title or not, he could be working and building up the mid-card division. I mean, his merch would still sell. Let somebody else take over. Let somebody else be the champ. You know, I am I guess you'd call me an internet fan. I don't know. I found you guys on the internet and fell in love with your show.
Thank you.
And I comment about stuff that I believe in, you know, or I agree with, and what I think about something. You know, I get into this internet on your Facebook page. I talk to, you know, other people through YouTube. So I guess I'm an internet fan, but you tell me that you're at a restaurant and somebody, you know, you order a steak and you want it well done. and you wave the waitress down and say, "Ma'am, this is undercooked. Just take it back and have them finish it, please." Say that chef brought the food out and was like, "What's wrong with it?" You know, and you're like, "Don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about." You know, I see the pink in the middle. Cook it a little bit longer, and that guy will be like, "Well, what do you know? Have you ever cooked a steak before?" You know, and I don't like how they put down internet fans or just what we have to say, because we're just internet fans, but we know what we like.
Well,
and
Mark,
we like
Bryan. Let me step in right there. I think you make very, very valid points, and I especially enjoy your analogy about the steak. I think he said something about it being pink.
Well, who orders a steak well done in the first place, Damien? That right there is your first mistake.
You like yours pink in the middle, David?
Absolutely. Who doesn't?
Classification of fans as internet fans. Here's the problem. Too many... How do I frame this? Too many internet fans, too many fans who think they're in the know because of what they read on the internet, not what they hear from the people who are making the decisions and who are backstage and who are in the company, which is the fortunate situation we are in. But those who think they're in the know become very vocal about the thing. They try to prove how smart they are. And I'm not saying this is the case with you, Mark, but they try to prove how smart they are. And it becomes very... irritating, I guess, if you're in the business and you're attempting to put on a show for people who aren't those internet fans. And that sort of goes back to the conversation I had earlier with you, David Hero, about whether or not there are actually more of those quote-unquote internet fans than either we, WWE, or TNA believes that there are, given the reaction to the CM Punk situation. I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is WWE, TNA, well, hopefully TNA, I think they're getting there, Ring of Honor, any wrestling company that's still around and that's making money or at least still in business is looking at business results. Who was on the card? How many tickets did you sell? How many tickets did you sell in advance? How many did you sell at the door? Did you have to discount those tickets? What were your merchandise sales? What were your merchandise per caps? How much television revenue are you getting? How many pay-per-view buys are you getting? What kind of demand is there for the star that you've put on top or any star that you have on your company? That's the stuff they're looking at. They're not listening to, in today's wrestling environment, they're not listening to your cheers in the crowd. They are not listening to that for determining which star they get over. They're determining it by the actions that you take in reference to that star. I think the key point of this is if you go back to SummerSlam and you go back to the business results in WWE for the fall season, late summer, early fall, what did the chairman of the company, Vince McMahon, say about those events by which Daniel Bryan was in the main events? Quote unquote, swing and a miss. That they said that their shows are built around what was the word that they used? Attractions. And that these shows were not built around the right attraction. Folks, that's coming from Vince McMahon. And it's funny to me, David, how many people have forgotten that statement that he made. And I'll find it and I'll reread it to you so that you get more in line with it. But reason that's right there in front of us.
The reason people have forgotten about it is because it was referencing Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and Brock Lesnar. You know, if it would have been just about Batista and John Cena, people wouldn't have forgotten about it. But the fact is, you know, SummerSlam, right now, what people don't realize is that, you know, the people in the offices in Titan Towers and in Nashville, they look at quarter hour ratings like crazy. They look for the trends. They want to see when people tune in and when they tune out. They have it down to a science. Yep. Because and that's where they make their money.
Because they're running a business.
It is not the 1960s, 70s, and 80s anymore, okay? Right now, WWE, it's World Wrestling Entertainment. They are more of a television production company than they are a wrestling company now.
Yep.
They do far more production. They do movies. They're involved in so many other things and business ventures and whatnot. That's where their money is. This network thing, it's going to change the business forever.
Yep.
And it's because they're in the TV business right now. It's no longer, sending out 3 different crews, an A town, a B town, and a C town, and have these guys crisscross the nation. It's a science. It's a different business. And if Daniel Bryan, listen, they have been trying to make Daniel Bryan a crossover star. Why do you think he was focused and featured so much on True Divas?
Yeah. Yep. And here's the thing, too.
They're doing the best they can.
And you said this isn't the 70s, 80s, or 90s anymore. In those days, it mattered what the fans cheered for more so than it does today. Because they had more than John Cena, meaning John Cena is really the bread and butter of WWE right now, whether we like it or not. That's the fact. And now they have to answer to a board of directors. They have to answer to Wall Street with their stock price, which, by the way, currently is at, I think, a 52-week high or high even longer than that. And it's just a different business. And I can understand how that's frustrating to a lot of fans. Now, David Hero, you are a promoter and a booker, if you will. You run Great Lakes Championship Wrestling. You decide whether or not you're bringing in big-name stars or if you're going to run a show without a star or who that star is going to be. Let's walk the audience through how you arrive at that decision and what are the drivers that make you determine whether you're going to bring in an Al Snow or a Gold Dust or a Rhino or a Tommy Dreamer or anyone else for that matter.
Well, it obviously comes down to where I can capitalize that market, where I can sell the most tickets, what the people are going to want to come out to see, what the people are going to invest in. And who's going to sell the most tickets for me? That's who's going to get featured on the show. That's who the show's going to be built around. That's who the poster is going to have on it. It's certain guys. Will draw 200 or 300 people, and then you put somebody else on. Well, hey, I want to go see. Like an example is Kevin Nash. Nash, we always, he draws a different audience than Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer will draw the hardcore wrestling fans.
Yeah.
Kevin Nash, he draws crossover because of, let's say, with Magic Mike. He'll get women to come to see him because they want to see Tarzan. They'll also get the guys that haven't watched wrestling in 15 years because, it's the NWO. So, I mean, there's different dynamics for each person individually. But at the end of the day, my job is to put on an entertaining show and make some money. And right now, and people have said it, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
WWE, house show events, their numbers are down.
Yep.
And they're down running in smaller buildings. They're not in the big, in the big arenas anymore.
And let me say this too. SmackDown's coming to Milwaukee on February 25th, and I think we both know that they just launched a buy one get one free special for that show, meaning you buy one ticket you get 2. Now when TNA was doing that, people were jumping all over him saying the company sucks, blah 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 blah. They can't even fill a building. Well, to your point just a while ago, WWE in a similar situation right now. Now at the same time, maybe they're just looking to fill the building. I don't know, but. Last time WWE came to Milwaukee back in September of last year for a house show, they did their biggest number in a long time of over 9,000 people in that building for that house show. And we'll see what happens come SmackDown this week. But let's go back to those comments. And the phone lines are blowing up right now, which is great. We'll get to your calls in a minute. We've got Rob on the line and several other people. We'll get your names and whatnot and then take you in a moment. The number is 347-996-5278. Damian Nelson and David Hero here on a special Wednesday edition of PWR Live, taking your calls and your feedback. It's feedback special, I guess you can call it. But here's what Vince McMahon specifically said. Reference the SummerSlam pay-per-view numbers. He said that the pay-per-view events are attraction-driven. He then went on to say, and I quote, "It was a swing and a miss as far as the attraction they went with." He said the declining numbers really don't have to do with anything other than that. So in that statement, he's saying that the attraction that they went with was a swing and a miss, and that there was no other reason. And at the end of that call, remember, as the microphone...
Vince McMahon has never done that before.
Never done that. But keep in mind, at the end of the call, as the phone was still alive, or the mics were still alive, or whatever, Vince was heard saying, and I quote, as Daniel Bryan would say, whatever that meant. Now, maybe Daniel Bryan was in the room and they were all joking about it or whatnot, but on those pay-per-views, on the top of the card, was not only Daniel Bryan, but also John Cena, and there's no doubt that John Cena is not the person he was referring to when he said that the attraction they went with was a swing and a miss. Folks, not our words. Those are Vince McMahon's words. And I don't agree with the fact that he shouldn't have done that, because you can't blame it on one talent. The machine has a responsibility to sell the event as well, i.e. WrestleMania, that sold some near 60,000 tickets, and not a single, well, actually one match has been announced. But before that match was announced, they had already sold 50,000 tickets. So take that for what it's worth. With that, we are going to go to our next caller. Thank you, Mark, from down in Tennessee, for calling and joining us. Our next caller comes to us from Mishawaka. Rob, you are live here on PWR Live. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, glad to be here, Damian and David.
Yes,
just a quick thing. I mean, not going to really spend too much time on it. I don't blame the WWE like some of my friends have been over Daniel Bryan. In my opinion, they had a plan going into WrestleMania season, and numerous factors have, I'm not saying made them change it or look to change it, but it was not the reaction I think they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of applaud WWE for saying, no, we're going to look into our game plan, but we're not just going to change it automatically because of the fans.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of factors. CM Punk leaving, Batista's reaction at the Rumble. So, as a Daniel Bryan fan, I applaud them for not just saying, okay, we change our mind, Daniel Bryan's our new poster child, because really I agree with David. It's not about how loud you cheer. If you're not buying his stuff, they're really not going to push him.
Right. And thank you so much for that call. Very well put, Rob. But that, and again, the point we made earlier, David, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they would have changed course, and they have changed course in the past. And it's not like, and I'm a Daniel Bryan fan, I'm a CM Punk fan, but it's not like they didn't give Daniel Bryan and CM Punk a spot at the top of the card, at the top of the company, for a period of time. CM Punk was WWE champion for 434 days, I believe it was. Now, while he wasn't main eventing those pay-per-views, headlining, if you will, those pay-per-views during that time, Daniel Bryan took us through the second quarter, the second half of 2013, and whether or not that was enough time, because one could argue that maybe they need to invest more time and wait a little longer on the investment that is Daniel Bryan to let it sink and set in, they did give them the opportunity. It's not like they've been completely ignoring it, like Dolph Ziggler, who, you know, unfortunate circumstances, was not the world heavyweight champion as long as he probably should have been. But there are so many more people, it seems, than a CM Punk that deserve a spot that CM Punk had on the card.
You know, Damien, and you know, some people aren't going to believe this, but the board of directors, when they get together, they look over the merchandising sales.
Yep.
And the board of directors in WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, are very persuasive, and they can say, hey, you know what, these numbers are pretty outstanding. I think this guy needs to be a champion. I think this guy needs to get a push. And those board of directors, even though they may not be creative, can influence creative as to who they're going to push and go forward with.
Right.
And I can guarantee you that is how that works.
That is true. Let's go to another call. Again, we're taking your calls on number 347-996-5278. Got quite a few of you waiting on hold. Let's now go to Massachusetts. Matt, you are with us here on PWR Live. Thanks for calling in. What do you have for us, Matt, out in Massachusetts?
Hi, guys. I just wanted to know your guys' thoughts or opinion on this. I couldn't help but feel as if the WWE was trying to make Daniel Bryan the Mick Foley or the Mankind back when he was going against the corporation in August, September. And the promos, I felt like they were trying to put him down, not necessarily bury him, but put him down to get sympathy from the fans. during Triple H's promos, do you think they may have put him down a little bit too much, and that might have had an effect on the main event pay-per-view buys? If not, what else do you think may have contributed to it?
Thank you for that call.
Well, that was
Matt.
one of the things that was one of the things that I said afterwards, because they kept burying him, saying he wasn't an A-plus player. He was a B-plus at best. So if you're telling your audience, hey, this guy isn't good enough, well, then why would the audience want to buy and invest into someone that the COO of the company is saying isn't a top guy?
Yep.
I think that was part of it that hurt, the pay-per-view buys, but, that's just part of it, not all of it.
But what else could they have done? Because I absolutely agree with you, and they did seemingly take advantage of every opportunity to say Daniel Bryan's not as good as you think he is, fans, which is a wrong thing to do. But that was definitely the impression we got, and we barked about it on Primetime and said, why are they taking every opportunity to bury this guy? It just didn't seem to make any sense. Were they trying to enact the power of the machine by turning around the fans' reaction to him, by trying to tell the fans that he wasn't as good as they thought he was, quote unquote?
Or you know what? Let's play the conspiracy theory. Maybe some people inside the company looked at Daniel Bryan as a threat, and they wanted to make sure he didn't become one. Because, believe it or not, that does happen also. Let's not forget Ryback was one of the top baby faces going into WrestleMania. And he was starting to sell a ton of merchandise.
Yeah.
And what happens right after WrestleMania? Let's turn one of our top 4 baby faces who's selling a ton of merchandise heel and put him in a program with number 1 baby face John Cena. Mm-hmm. That kind of killed the career of Ryback as far as I'm concerned.
I would tend to agree. We're taking your calls, folks, 347-996-5278. Got several of you on hold right now. If you're on hold and you haven't pressed 1 on your phone to indicate that you want to speak, please do that now so we can go ahead and grab your name and where you're from and then hear your comments. Damian Nelson and David Hero here on PWR Live, a special feedback edition on Wednesday. We're also following along with your comments on Twitter. And we do have a comment from a user on Twitter by the name of @BlanchardBuzz, who says, and I quote, if Daniel Bryan had better-looking shirts, I think that would help his sales. Who wants shirts with a goat face or yes, yes, yes all over it? And Dave, you're the merchandise expert, so I'll leave it to you to answer that particular question from Blanchard Buzz.
Well, the goat face, I wouldn't be a big fan of that one. But the yes, yes, yes and the no, no, no isn't terrible. I mean, you have to start somewhere. And when you start selling the stuff, then they're going to start making more. Uh-huh. I mean, John Cena gets a new shirt it seems like every quarter he gets one.
Yeah.
So was CM Punk. And yeah, some of the shirts are stinkers and, they wind up on sale, but obviously there wasn't a big demand for them to make newer stuff. And let's not forget, Daniel Bryan's the guy that signs off on the shirt too. I mean, they present to him and say, hey, what do you think about this? And he has to say yes or no.
But Daniel Bryan
obviously said both to both.
Well, Daniel Bryan has a different audience, though, than a John Cena, than a Steve Austin, whose Austin shirts were like printing money. And I think, in one point you've made many a time, is the best wrestling shirts are the wrestling shirts that aren't wrestling shirts. And the yes, 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 and the no, 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 I think fell heavily into that category.
Oh, I agree. If I was going to buy a wrestling shirt, it would have been one of those, because it's not a true wrestling shirt. It's not going to have the guy's face or likeness on it. It's more of a symbol, a logo, and I like those the most out of all of them.
Would you put the face on the back?
No, I wouldn't put the face anywhere.
Let's go to our next caller.
As a grown man, I don't want to have another man's face on me. It doesn't work.
Let's go to another caller. Let's go down to Chicago. We've got Christian calling from Chicago. You're live.
Hey guys.
Hey Christian.
I just want to say that I'm not gonna talk smack about David Hero on this phone call, so you have to worry about that.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Yeah.
Because I'm very fragile.
Yeah. Because I understand like where you're coming from with all the merchandise sales, and besides like John Cena, like, you know, he's the biggest star in the company, so I understand like why he would be on the top spots, because he sells most merchandise. And I want to say, like, when I was younger, like, I was a big fan of his because, like, you know, how his sports, like, type gimmick I was really into, and the fans were really into.
John Cena, like, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
When he was, like, the Dr. of Thugonomics.
Yeah.
It really got me invested in him back in the day. And I was a fan for him for years until, like, I'm still a fan because I grew up watching him as a kid, so it's all good.
Are you
I want to say something about...
Go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm a fan of all the wrestlers, including like guys like Batista, Randy Orton, because they were part of my childhood. And seeing them now, like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm a fan of Daniel Bryan's too, not because of everyone else, because he has that type of character that people actually like, and over so many arenas chanting yes, 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 because everybody sees him like, yeah, like, you know. And I want to say something about huh?
Well, wait, hold on a second. So when you were a fan of John Cena as the Doctor of Thugonomics, did you want to be the Doctor of Thugonomics? Thought that was cool?
Well, yeah, because, like, you know, he was wearing the jerseys and the hats.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay,
also
now answer me this. Do you want to be Daniel Bryan?
Well, well, I am growing somewhat of a beard, but I wouldn't exactly want to be like him.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is that you would have been the cool guy in the jersey and the gear as a Doctor of Thugonomics, but you'll cheer for Daniel Bryan, but you don't want to be Daniel Bryan. And that's the difference between popular and being over, right there.
Well, yeah. Well, Daniel Bryan, because there's a lot of people who like to see him like in the arenas because he puts out one of the best matches.
Mm-hmm.
So
CJ,
people, I understand what.
Christian, my question is this though: in today's day and age, as a fan, is it the best wrestler you're going to see, or is it the best entertainer you're going to see when you go to a wrestling show?
I like to believe that some people would like to see the wrestling and some people like to be entertained.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of both would be like the perfect type of show, because you'll see the best wrestling ability from all the other wrestlers. At the same time, you will like being entertained by some of the biggest stars.
Mm-hmm. Here's the question, and this was posed to us back when we were on ESPN Radio from Al Snow, and he asked, "What was the best match at WrestleMania?" Or how was the question framed, David Hero? Because it wasn't best match, because that's an easy answer. But what was the most?
No. What was the best match at WrestleMania?
Okay, WrestleMania 3. Yeah, and most people will answer Steamboat versus Savage, because that was the best wrestling match on the card. But the match that put 93,173 people in that building and kept WWE in business was Hogan versus Andre. And that's the disconnect, because that was the entertaining piece of the show, but that wasn't the best wrestling match of the show. And us as diehard wrestling fans, it's difficult to comprehend that at times, because a lot of people want to see great wrestling action, but no one wants to see 60 minutes of it nowadays. It looks like we lost
Actually, me.
We can bring Christian back on if he still has more to say. I enjoyed talking to him there. But, David, I think in the meantime, Christian, you're back. Did you have anything else for us there, or a response to that comment?
Well, yeah. Well, the problem is these days, like, some people are not really, like, entertained. And, like, they want to see more of the wrestling, when back then, people like seeing the entertainment more better than the wrestling.
Yep. Well, because the entertainment
was real entertaining.
Exactly. I totally agree. And thank you very much for that conversation, Christian, and for calling in from down in Chicago. The entertainment business has evolved in such a way that the attention span of the audience is much less than it ever was, and people no longer go to the matches. Because, right, David, when we were growing up, people went to the matches. Now, they're going to Raw or SmackDown or WrestleMania. They're going to WWE. Even when some people are going to see a TNA show or even a local show, they're going to see WWE. It's a brand that has grown out of its dependency on an individual star to make that brand. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but here's a case in point. In a moment, we'll take a call from CJ from Buffalo. But here's a case in point. I firmly believe that most fans, especially those who are most vocal on the internet, not all, so I'm not naming names or calling anyone names here, but I think that all they want to do is much like people in this world, and I hope you are like this because you should be, people just want to win. They just want to win. They want to be A, proven right, B, see things go their way, and C, feel like they had a purpose in their fandom, if you will. Case in point, Zack Ryder. Everybody got on the Zack Ryder bandwagon. Zack Ryder. When he was given that spot in WWE, it didn't last, and it didn't last. Why? Because once those same vocal fans got what they wanted, they won by Zack Ryder being prominently featured on WWE broadcasting, specifically Raw. They stopped. The support for him dried up. As a result, they got what they asked for, but didn't expect it to end the way it did. But they won and they stopped. They moved on to the next thing. And that's the challenge.
And now he has brown hair.
Now he has brown hair, and we saw him on Raw this past Monday night for the first time in a long time, only for the purpose of getting over Titus O'Neil. Or getting Titus O'Neil over.
The sacrificial lamb. That's who he was on Monday Night Raw.
I see what you did there.
I did something.
Great call, though, Christian from down in Chicago. Let's continue on the phone lines here.
But Damian, wait. Going back to Christian's call, he proved our point. He wanted to be John Cena, the doctor of economics. He does not want to be Daniel Bryan.
Mm-hmm. Well, he is growing a beard, though.
But that's a big point. People wanted to be The Rock. People wanted to be Steve Austin. People want to be Brock Lesnar. Some people even wanted to be Mick Mankind Foley and Cactus Jack. They dumped off roofs and into barbed wire.
Yeah. You don't
see people wanting to be Daniel Bryan.
And here's a point to that point. People, as they were growing up, and David, you won't admit it, but I'll be glad to, you could pretend to be Hulk Hogan. You could pretend to be the Ultimate Warrior by what you said, what you did. You could pretend to be The Rock. Mm-hmm. You could pretend to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. When those videos you see of people who are stars now, who wanted to be stars, they're emulating those people. They're being those people. What do you do to be a CM Punk? What do you do to be a Daniel Bryan? They don't have any catchphrases, and mannerisms, anything like that, like all of those other stars did. I'm not knocking them for it, but that's that disconnect there of why they may not be as big a mainstream star as we wrestling fans may think they are. You could chant yes.
He was Mr. When he was Mr. Perfect, and they did the vignettes of the hole-in-one and the full court basketball and hitting the home runs. People wanted to be Mr. Perfect.
Yeah.
Simply perfect. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's continue on to...
And Daniel Bryan, different breed.
Let's continue on to our next phone call. This comes out from Buffalo. CJ, you are live here on the Pro Wrestling Report, a special live feedback edition on Wednesday. Go ahead, CJ.
Hey, gentlemen. How we doing tonight?
Tremendous.
Fantastic.
All right. I'm at Conrad Cushman. You guys always retweet me and stuff. I love the show. Now that we got all the nice stuff out of the way, I was the one who posted on the YouTube comment page about CM Punk and how I half agreed and half disagreed. So I'm going to kind of switch gears from Daniel Bryan to CM Punk here.
Okay.
I just don't understand how some people don't see what CM Punk's doing here. I think he wants WWE to be better, and they're just refusing to let it happen. And I don't know if it's from I go to school for my MBA. I'll have it soon. And I understand the business aspects of it, but WWE sometimes seems like they're killing their own stuff. Like, they insult me, I feel, as a viewer when I watch their television show. I like shows like Sons of Anarchy, Breaking Bad. All this stuff makes sense, and it's lined up in an order, and everything revolves, and I love that. I don't see why WWE can't do the same thing to understand people are smarter now, more mature. And I've been watching since the 80s. So I think
because
that, I don't know.
WWE is a PG show, and the Sons of Anarchy and Breaking Bad aren't, and the real demographic they're shooting to is 15 years old and younger, is the real demographic.
I respect that, but isn't their main viewer that watches the most a 40-year-old guy, though? I know they're shooting towards the PG audience, but isn't their main viewer the 40-year-old person? And I think that's why they're getting all this backlash and fans who are hijacking the shows, which I'm starting to think is taking away from the shows a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's fun, but I just don't. I mean, the WrestleMania crowd, I was okay with it. Now I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're taking over stuff. I don't know if it's Randy Orton they hate, if it's Sheamus, or I don't know.
Because the fans are bored. They're not being entertained. That's the problem. So they have to entertain themselves.
Here's one thing to think about as well, CJ, is when you compare it to those other shows that you talked about, they don't have a live audience. So the only reaction they can make is to whatever's happening on Twitter, social media, whatever emails they get or what have you. And it's definitely not going to resonate as much as someone chanting, 20,000 people chanting yes or chanting for CM Punk. So WWE is in a unique spot in that regard. You look at even some sports games. The home team could end up getting booed out of the building if they play bad. Does it mean they're going to modify...
Like at Denver.
Right. Does it mean they're going to modify their play by next time? I don't know. But WWE's in a unique spot, and they did, I think they did react to what the fans wanted. They gave CM Punk a run. They gave Daniel Bryan a run. And, you know, David, we were talking earlier, and I don't know, CJ, if you've gotten a chance to listen to it, but Chavo Guerrero was on Chris Jericho's podcast, I Am Jericho, or Talk Is Jericho, and he said two things that were profound. Firstly, he said that in today's state of wrestling, the champion is not the most important person in the company, is not the most over person or popular person in the company, which has been the case for a while. And he also said, and I quote, "Wrestling is a big man's business." This coming from Chavo Guerrero. He knows. He worked in WWE
the nephew
for a very
of Eddie.
long time. Absolutely. So those are the challenges. And as David said earlier, WWE and even Vince McMahon has somebody to answer to. And that's to the millions of shareholders and the board of directors that don't care about what us, the fans, say. They care about the business results.
Would you guys say, though, would you be more interested in WWE storylines? Because you know how it does the up-tempo swing and then it falls right back down? Would you be more interested if they had long-term book storylines? Like, I feel like they used to do that, and they're just getting shorter and shorter, and they're drifting away. Like, it seems like everything's week to week, something's changing, flip it.
I think that they've been challenged.
I would prefer that.
I think they've been challenged with injuries, with contracts, with stars they feel they need versus those they already have. And I think they're challenged by the feedback that they get from the other people they answer to as to who they should be pushing. I think that the one thing that's clear that is now missing from wrestling is real emotion is what sells tickets. You've heard legends say that for years. If you get to a point of believability, that's what sells tickets. There's really not much aside from the Wyatts in WWE right now that is believable and intriguing enough to sell tickets. And that's the true shame of it all.
I can agree with that emotional aspect that you said, because when I was watching Battleground, I was at the pay-per-view live. The best match was the Dusty Rhodes, Goldust, Cody Rhodes match, just because of the emotion that they weren't there, they weren't higher. But when Cody hit that crossroads, I was with people who don't even watch wrestling. My best friend's wife was there, and everyone was going nuts, dancing to Dusty Rhodes, and people were crying. My girlfriend's like, has a tear coming down her face. I'm like, what is this? And she's just like, it's just so sad. And I was like, they got her.
Yeah.
She fell right into it. But that's the beauty part of it, I guess, is what you guys are saying. That's correct.
Yeah. Well, CJ, thank you so much for that call out in Buffalo, New York. Let's go to another call, David Hero. It looks like this will be our final call of the hour, and we're going to go down to Hotlanta Corey, you are live here on PWR Live. Thank you for joining us here on a Wednesday night. How you doing, Corey?
What's going on? You may know me as Smart Race from Twitter. Been listening to you guys talking about emotion. Now, I've been a fan of pro wrestling for 30 years, 35. Watch all the shows, buy the DVDs, buy the pay-per-views, and like you said, the Wyatts are the only thing that are believable. But I think that the wrestling business, as an outsider looking in, has been so overexposed. You have the fans that were watching in the Attitude Era that are now watching 15 or 16 years later that just watch that habit. What do you guys?
I think there's. Oh, go ahead, David.
No, I would have to agree. I mean, the business has been overexposed. There's so much more on television. There's almost wrestling on every night of the week. You've had a different version of Tough Enough. Now you have Total Divas, where they pretty much pull the curtain back and show you all the magic tricks that the magicians have been doing for all the years and giving everything away. And it's almost made everybody feel like now they know the wrestling business because of what they've seen on TV or read online. And the magic is gone. The believability, what is the word I'm looking for? The aura of the believability isn't there as much anymore because everyone knows it's predetermined. It's, scripted. It's a scripted reality show now, I guess you could say. So that's definitely hurt the business, whereas before, go back to the early WrestleManias, you didn't know if Hogan or Andre was going to win. You didn't know if Hogan was going to be the Ultimate Warrior. It was just so much uncertainty. Now stuff leaks out. There's so much more information. It's changed the dynamic of wrestling completely. And I think that by that, the fans have changed as well.
Yeah, I would also say, Corey, that it is a bit of a habit. People do tune in because every Monday night for the last 20 years they watch Raw. But at the same time, 3 million or so people are tuning into SmackDown. 1.5 million people are tuning into Impact on Thursdays, and about 1 million people are tuning into Main Event. So I think it is habitual, and you do hear from a lot of fans. Obviously, you said you were on Twitter. A lot of people saying, hey, I'm done with this. CM Punk is gone, and Daniel Bryan wasn't in the Rumble. Batista won. I'm never watching again. And we all know those are the first people that tune in the next night to watch again.
Yeah, agreed. And as far as CM Punk goes, I think the fact I can understand being burned out, being on the road for 300 plus days a year, being tired, not liking the direction that his character's in, not being the main event guy. When he's the guy that does everything, is being the workhorse, and being there 300 days a year and doing Comic Cons. But the fact that he just walked out just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. He walked out on the fans. Whether he cares about it or not, he let the fans down. He let his boss down. He let the shareholders down. And, just the fact that he did that, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, oh, well, I care so much about you guys and so much about the wrestling business. For a guy who claims to be old school, kind of did a scumbag thing by walking out like he did.
I agree 110%. And now, but CM Punk can now be the guy that said, I walked out on Vince McMahon. I don't need them.
But shouldn't he be saying that? Shouldn't he be saying that?
But
because we haven't heard.
Because right now, silence is golden. Right now, everyone is talking about it and speculating, waiting for his first tweet, and that first tweet will get 1 million retweets.
Yeah.
And he could even just tweet out Pepsi, and it'll get 1 million retweets right now because everyone's waiting.
Right.
Okay, so he's the guy that walked out on Vince McMahon. Okay, but what does that say about his character? Whether wrestling fans like it or not, Stone Cold Steve Austin is as big as he is because of the work he put in, but because of the machine. People knew who CM Punk was, but he's a millionaire, 10 times or 20 times over because of WWE and the machine. I think that's what some of these guys forget. There, for a scripted business, I'm going to say this as try to say this as respectful as I can. For a business that is scripted, there sure is a lot of prima donnas in this business, whether they earned it or not. And I'm not saying he didn't earn it, but you just if this was 1975 and he had walked out, he'd be blackballed. Go back and look at the John Stossel interview.
He'd be in the trunk of a car, probably. Actually,
exactly.
The good old days.
How could you preach? How could you preach respect in your old school, and do something that a mid card guy would do? No. Not saying
I don't think
mid card guy is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the challenge.
CM Punk is, as talented as CM Punk is, he's lucky that he was wrestling in this era, because he wouldn't have fit in the 1970s with guys like Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher, Vern Gagne, Harley Race, and the Funks. I don't think he would have fit in. He definitely would not have fit in the Hulkamania era, where it's guys like Hogan, Bundy, Stud, Kamala, Andre, the Samoans, Killer Khan, huge monsters. Attitude Era, he may have been mid-card guy at best, because he wasn't going to jump over DX, Austin, NWO, and Rock. He's fortunate he was born into this era where he had more of an opportunity.
And
he wouldn't have fit in any of the three previous.
Unfortunately, Corey, we will have to end your call at this point. Thank you very much for the call and the insight as to your perspective as to what's going on. We've got just about 2 minutes left in the show. And David, what I want to do is to give an opportunity to everyone to continue to give us feedback, which is we have very thick skin. So if you want to hate on us, please hate on us. If you want to praise us,
and very
praise
smooth
us.
skin too, by the way, because we use moisturizers and we take care of ourselves.
But keep it coming on. But I think it's important to say this, that of those who called us tonight, we didn't hear the venom, if you will, that was spewed by some people who reached out to us on Twitter and on YouTube. And
because they'd have to ask their parents' permission to call.
Come on now. We really would love to hear from all of you, so continue that interaction. We do love to hear from all of you. Continue that interaction. We'll say this. We have confirmed, we do know that CM Punk walked out on WWE last Monday. That is a fact. We don't know all the specific circumstances behind it. So, given the fact that he is contracted to appear and did not show up or will not show up and has gone home, that's the basis for this conversation. To the point of Daniel Bryan, I'm not sure how much more we could beat that horse.
90
he is a
seconds.
Great talent.
Or
he is
goat.
a tremendous star. He is probably one of the best wrestlers in the world today. He is one of the most popular stars in WWE today. But for whatever reason, we haven't seen that come to fruition for a long enough period of time for true evaluation to be made. Now, I sit here wondering if Daniel Bryan does not finagle his way into one of the highlighted matches, one of the headlining matches at WrestleMania, which is a question we asked all of you on Twitter earlier today. One that you brought up last week on Primetime, David Hero. Daniel Bryan versus Triple H, WrestleMania 30, Superdome, New Orleans. Book it. That is money right there, and that is part of this evolution, and I would venture to say that's why Kane attacked Bryan to end Raw this past Monday night. And let's get a quick response in 20 seconds or less.
Daniel Bryan and Triple H means more than Daniel Bryan having a title match at WrestleMania.
We're out of time, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Meathead, for working behind the scenes here tonight, and we'll see you again this Saturday on Prime Time, where we'll be on My 24 Milwaukee, and then coming at you with a brand new podcast on Monday. For David Hero, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for tuning in to this very special edition of PWR
10
Live.
seconds.